So you're working harder than ever, but your business isn't growing the way that you had expected. You're teaching classes, maybe more than you want to. You're answering more emails. You're handling more problems. You're putting out more fires than you thought you would be at this stage. And still, you're not making the income that you thought you would be by now. This is the moment that so many people get frustrated, and some of you reach out to me. And you're wondering, is there something wrong? Where are the gaps? Is my market too competitive? Am I priced too expensively? Or am I just not good at the business side? Well, what if none of this is actually true? What if your business isn't broken? It just is not built to scale yet. Because the reality is that many boutique fitness studios aren't designed to grow beyond the owner. And this is something I think we need to talk about. I want to share with you some of the subtle things that your business is doing that shows you've hit that ceiling and what needs to shift if you want to grow without just adding more hours to your schedule. Well, hi there, I'm Seran Glanfield. I'm a business and marketing strategist just for boutique fitness studio owners like you. If you're ready to be inspired and make a bigger impact, you're in the right place. All you need are a few key strategies, the right mindset, and some support along the way. Join me as I share the real-life insights that will help you grow a sustainable and profitable studio. This is the Pilates Business Podcast. Well, hey there, and welcome back to the Pilates Business Podcast. I'm Seran Glanfield, and I'm the founder of Spring 3 Studio Business Consulting. And I have been in this industry for well over a decade, coaching and consulting to Pilates bar, yoga spin, dance cardio, and many other boutique fitness studio businesses. And I want to share with you some of the behind the scenes of what I see very often when I'm working with the studio owners that I work with inside of my programs. They come to me typically at a point where they are feeling a frustration on some level. Some are extremely overwhelmed. Some are working nonstop, still energized, still ambitious, still going after it, but are worried about whether or not this is something they can continue to do, a pace they can continue to go at. Some come to me at a place where they have given it all they've got and they're literally about to close the doors. And they come to me usually saying something like, there's so much competition, or the studio down the street is priced cheaper than me, or I'm just not making any money, I'm not paying myself, or I really, really, really need to work less hours. And I always tell them the same thing. Let's just take a look at the business and let's see what's going on underneath the hood, right? Because what we see on the outside is not always reflective of what is working, what might not be working so well inside the business. And what I find 100% of the time, honestly, is that your business is not broken. That it is likely there are some gaps in there that are keeping you stuck in the day-to-day, and it's not built to scale yet. And I think that we know when we start out, we know how to do that. We know how to start a business, right? We know that in the beginning, to get clients in the door, we're going to be having a schedule. We're going to be teaching a lot of the classes. I think that a lot of studios need to do this in the beginning. I think this is the way that you get started for many. And it's not wrong. But you find yourself doing all of these things, right? You're teaching, you're doing the marketing, and you're handling every decision. And in the beginning, I think every business, as you start out as an entrepreneur, you're willing to put in those hours and that effort because you want to see all of those pieces work well and figure out how to make it all work well, right? And quite honestly, it works great. It works great at first because when your business is smaller, you can hold everything together. It can be kind of run and you can do most of these things, but things change, right? Initially, you're the system, you're the marketing, you're the operations, you're the leadership. And then as you start to grow, you get more clients, you hire instructors, your schedule fills, and suddenly you're still trying to keep it all together, but now it's much bigger than it was. And you start to miss things. Things start to feel chaotic. It might feel a little bit out of control. It might feel heavy and like too much. And you might find that things start to slip through the cracks. You might find that you're spending a lot of time doing one thing when you know you should be doing another. You might find that you're responding to messages at times of day that you wish you didn't need to or have to. You might find that you're solving the team issue constantly. You might find that you're teaching more than you want to just to keep things running. And the frustrating part is that from the outside, your studio probably looks successful. People are probably coming to you expecting you to, be able to pay them a whole ton of money as an instructor, or maybe give a discount that you might not be willing to give, or perhaps to sponsor things or do giveaways more than you would, right? But behind the scenes, it feels unsustainable and exhausting maybe. And also you're just questioning, like, where am I going with this, right? And this happens with, I would say, most of the folks that get in touch with me who are actively in business. And it's not because you've done anything wrong. It's just because you have outgrown the way that your business was built initially. And I think that we see these different stages in the life cycle of your business, right? And we have to, I think, have that awareness of where we're at and what stage we're at in our business. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what that looks like and what that means. And then perhaps some of the things you might want to change if you want to grow and continue to build that sustainable business without burning yourself out. Now, I do think that there will become a point, if it hasn't ever happened to you already, that there will come a point in your business where growth starts to slow, okay? And it's not typically because demand just disappears overnight. And it isn't necessarily because your studio isn't good or good enough, but it's often because you become the bottleneck. This is the first thing that I see. This is actually what I see most often, right? It's because you're the one who's answering all the inquiries. You're the one who's managing the team. You're the one who's teaching the new clients. You're the one who's reaching out to new clients. You're fixing the problems, right? Solving the blocked toilet, handling the marketing, negotiating your lease with your landlord. And at some point, we're all human. You have a limit on the capacity and you just simply can't do more. So ultimately, and maybe this happens slowly or maybe it happens very quickly, but things start to stall, right? You hit this limit, this constraint, this capacity limit. And some people will just push through. They'll teach more hours. They'll teach later in the day. They'll teach earlier in the morning. They'll try to post more. And this is often where things start to get a little bit heavier, a little more chaotic, a little bit more exhausting, because you're trying to scale with effort, your effort and your hours, instead of scaling the business as a machine. And when you're trying to scale effort, it doesn't work. What does scale are systems, are leadership, and structure. These are the things that scale in a business, right? But effort always has a ceiling. So you can't just work harder. You can't just do more. There is a limit to it, and there always will be. So when your business relies on your personal input and your effort, your growth will always be limited. And this is the first shift that I think many make. And you kind of have to decide how you want to grow, or if you want to grow beyond this point. And many people are very happy where they're at, where they're saying, okay, I'm going to work this many hours for, the next kind of stage of my business, this next phase, this next chapter. I am just going to do what I'm doing right now. And a lot of people will stay there and feel pretty good about that. And that's great. If that's you, that's awesome. But if you want to grow and you don't want to just do more, then there's a few things that you want to be thinking about. And I think that, there's a few things I want you to sort of reflect on as we think about how to solve this, right? Because I want you just to look back, first of all, to think about where you were, say, a year ago. Are you busier today than you were a year ago? And a lot of folks will answer yes. And the next question I'm going to ask you is, has your income grown at the same pace that you have become busier? Are you paying yourself linearly with your effort? And this is where things often get a little bit quiet, because for many studio owners, busy hasn't actually translated into more profit. And this is often one of the biggest signs that your business is not built to scale, right? You're working more, but the business isn't becoming easier. You're doing more, and the business just depends on you more. So that means that when you want to take a week off to take a vacation, you can't. You feel like you can't because you know that is going to have a really detrimental impact on your revenue. So you're growing, and on the outside, your business looks amazing, but you do not feel that freedom that you should feel as the owner of your business. In fact, you might look around and see all of the people who work for you have way more freedom than you do, right? And that creates a whole other can of worms that I'm not going to get into today. But this is ultimately not sustainable because growth should make you feel better about your business, right? Isn't this what we're seeking? This is what we're looking for. So it shouldn't feel heavier. It should create more stability. It should create more predictability, more leadership, more margin. So if growth is feeling like more chaotic to you, then that means that's a sign that there's something in the foundation that needs to evolve. Now, I just want to touch on one thing really quickly here, because I do think this is worth acknowledging. Sometimes, and I do come across this when I coach my studio owners often, there is this sort of external desire for growth, but this internal reluctance to do things differently to achieve that growth. And it's because of this association that many of us have with, oh, if I grow, that will just mean more work for me. And that association between those two things, we have to break that if we want to grow to the next level. Because otherwise, what we see, and I see it very often, is that there becomes this sort of conflict within your activity, within your business, within what you're doing in your business, where you say on the outside you want to grow and you do some things that you want to grow, but you're not actually implementing the systems that are going to help you to scale. And it's because we haven't broken that association between busy and growth. And your business growing is not necessarily going to mean more hours for you. It can without systems and structure, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. And I think until we make the association of growth with become about having systems and structure and scale and flexibility, then you will always find that perhaps that that internal conflict that you're almost creating for yourself, often, honestly, incredibly subconsciously, you will always find that struggle. So there are oftentimes when studios hit this stage where they are, struggling to think about what's next because they're doing a lot. The biggest missing piece, as I've already said, is going to be the systems piece. But it's not just operational systems, it's growth systems as well, okay? So it's not just about the email automations, it's about the clarity in the business, which is about your leadership and the vision that you have and taking the time to think that through. It's about structure within your team, being clear on the roles and responsibilities and who's responsible for what. It's about having a rhythm to your leadership and being consistent with how often you're reflecting on your business and who's doing what and how it's growing. It's about having a clear onboarding for your clients, your new clients, but also your team members, and about consistency across the board in both your lead generation, conversion, and retention marketing activities, right? And these are all these different pieces that make up your business where you can have systems and structure, but where they are often missing. In fact, there's often zero structure and zero systems in all of those places. And without the systems and structure in these places, growth will be messy. It will feel chaotic. You'll add more clients, but the quality isn't consistent of the way that they're interacted with. You'll hire more instructors, but the communication isn't clear and you're finding it frustrating to bring people into the fold, as it were. You might add more classes to the schedule, but you're not sure if they're actually profitable or not, right? And so all of a sudden that growth actually creates more friction. So many studio owners unintentionally avoid the growth because growth feels stressful. Growth shouldn't feel stressful. It shouldn't feel chaotic. It should feel steady. It should feel predictable. It should feel supported and good. I'm like, I've got this, right? But that only happens when your business is built to scale. And I think that one of the biggest shifts of all that we have to make when we are in this phase, when we hit this ceiling, is that in order to scale your business, you have to stop operating like a solo instructor with a studio and start operating like a business owner. And that doesn't mean stepping away from teaching completely. It just means shifting your role from having your hand in everything, right? And I think that in the beginning, you want this because you need to have your hand in everything to make sure it's all working. But as you grow, this is where we want to start to delegate, to let things go, to set up the systems and the processes to mean that those things don't need your hand in everything all the time, right? So you go from your hand in everything to designing what you want your business to do. You go from solving problems very regularly to building the systems that make sure that those problems don't exist at all. And you go from the managing the day-to-day, right, the minutiae, to leading growth. And this is truly where studios begin to scale, because now the business is not dependent upon you. It has more structure, it has more direction, it has more momentum. And this is where things really start to feel different. And you, as the leader, get a lot more clarity, more confidence, and it all just feels a whole lot more sustainable. And frankly, honestly, what I see and experience when I see folks join Thrive and they implement these systems and they see the impact, they go from showing up on the calls, feeling obviously a little bit like chaotic, stressed out, overwhelmed, to they show up on the calls and they are smiling and they are talking about how this is all easy now. And they're like almost like chomping at the bit for like the next challenge. And it's amazing to see this shift, this growth, this journey that I go on with my studio owners, to see the shift that goes from that place of feeling like they're in reactive mode to feeling like they can handle whatever their business throws at them. And it's because they have these systems and structure in place that they know it's robust, they know, and they have the confidence in their business and themselves because they have equipped themselves with the skills, with the tools, with the knowledge, with the expertise to do that. And we do that all inside of Thrive. So let's recap what we talked about today. Your business isn't broken. Pretty sure it's not broken. It's just maybe not built to scale just yet. So when studio owners hit that ceiling, when they become the bottleneck, when growth creates more work, when systems are missing, when you haven't invested in your leadership skills, things will always feel a little bit tricky, a little bit tough. But when you shift from that effort-based growth that I talked about earlier to more systems-based growth, everything changes. Everything changes. Truly, you get more predictability in your business, more stability in your business, more profitability. And for you as the business owner, the leader, the entrepreneur, the reason you probably got into this in the first place was because you wanted more flexibility with your time, where you spend your time, and that, what we all talk about is freedom, right? That you have that flexibility to choose how you spend your days. And this is exactly what we focus on inside of Thrive. Thrive is my business coaching program designed for boutique fitness studio owners who are ready to grow beyond themselves and build that sustainable and scalable business. So inside of Thrive, we work on lead generation, we work on conversion, we work on sales, we work on retention, yes, but we also work on systemizing all of that. We work on helping you develop those leadership skills, the organizational skills, implementing the right tools for your business so that you're not just growing in the short term, but you are growing in the long term and you're building a business that is robust and sustainable. And you deserve that business. You deserve a business that supports your life, not one that depends on you every minute of the day to create every dollar it makes, right? So if you are ready for that, if you want to be one of those people that joins our calls inside of Thrive smiling because everything is working so smoothly and you are just ready for that next thing, you've taken the vacations, you've got that team that's working well with you, you've got the clients in the studio who are excited to be there, and you want to be that person, then learn more about Thrive at spring3.com/Thrive. Thank you so much for listening. I will catch you in the next episode. Did you love this episode and want more? Head to spring3.com and check out my free resources that will help you run a profitable and fulfilling studio business. And before you go, one last reminder, there is no one way to do what you do, only your way. So whatever it is that you want to do, create, or offer, you've got this. Thanks again for joining me today and have a wonderful rest of your day.